There is a place on Earth where logic goes to die. A 512-acre patch of high desert dust that the Pentagon spent $22 million to monitor. And they didn't do it because of ghost stories. They did it because something at Skinwalker Ranch is broadcasting. Not from a tower, not from a satellite, but from the very air itself. A 1.6 gigahertz signal that appears like a phantom, right before people start to bleed from their ears. This isn't just a mystery. It's a battlefield where human science is losing. And the most terrifying part? The property isn't just watching us. It's anticipating our every move. Welcome to Skinwalker Ranch, the most sophisticated, privately funded laboratory on the planet. When billionaire Brandon Fugel purchased the property, he didn't bring investigators. He brought a team of elite scientists. But even with state-of-the-art tech, they are outmatched. They've documented GPS systems failing in mid-air, drones being hijacked by invisible forces, and a mysterious anomaly hovering exactly 5,000 feet above the ranch. This hole in the sky seems to be a gateway, a point where our dimension meets something else. And every time they try to measure it, the ranch pushes back. Investigators have documented something truly chilling: preemptive intelligence. The ranch seems to know what the team is planning before they even unpack their gear. High-tech camera rigs have been found systematically dismantled, not smashed but professionally taken apart, during 3-minute windows when no human was watching. It intercepts Wi-Fi signals, mirrors private encrypted communications, and shuts down power grids the second a sensitive experiment begins. It doesn't just observe our technology, it understands it, and it views our curiosity as a threat. But the property doesn't just target machines, it targets the human body. When the team tried to broadcast back at the 1.6 gigahertz frequency, the retaliation was biological. Members of the staff have suffered sudden acute radiation syndrome symptoms with no detectable source of radiation. We are talking about brain swelling, permanent inner ear damage, and what doctors call neurological insults. It mirrors the infamous Havana syndrome reported by intelligence officers worldwide. The ranch is using invisible frequencies as a non-lethal weapon to defend its borders. And as the AAWSAP files suggest, the government knew this was happening all along. They weren't just looking for UFOs. They were studying a non-human adversary that has been here since the beginning. To the local Ute tribe, this isn't just a ranch, it's a scar on the earth. For centuries, they have refused to set foot on this property, calling it the Path of the Skinwalker. The legend dates back to the mid-19th century, born from a brutal conflict between the Ute and the Navajo. As the story goes, the Navajo, facing defeat, unleashed a powerful curse upon this valley. They summoned a dark, shape-shifting entity to haunt their enemies forever. While modern skeptics call it folklore, the Ute elders treat it as a biological reality. They don't just fear what is on the ranch. They respect the boundary between our world and theirs. But what exactly is a skinwalker? In Navajo culture, it is a Yi-Naldlushi, a corrupt shaman who sacrificed a family member to gain forbidden power. The power to wear the skin of an animal and, more disturbingly, to wear the face of a human. These beings are described not just as monsters, but as interdimensional predators. They mimic the voices of loved ones to lure victims into the dark. They move with a speed that defies human anatomy. In the 1990s, the Sherman family reported seeing massive, wolf-like creatures that shrugged off bullets from a .357 Magnum as if they were nothing more than a nuisance. This isn't just a legend. It's a recorded history of encounters that predates the arrival of any government agency. Towering over the ranch is the Mesa, a massive, silent monolith of sandstone and iron. To a geologist, it's a natural formation. But to those who have spent a night in its shadow, it is a fortress. Modern LiDAR scans have revealed something that shouldn't exist. Massive, hollowed-out chambers deep within the solid rock, arranged with a geometric precision that nature simply cannot replicate. When investigators tried to drill into the mesa, they didn't hit sandstone. They hit a layer of impenetrable, non-terrestrial metallic foil, a substance that sent their drill bits screaming into dust and caused their electronics to reboot with scrambled, unreadable code. The Ute tribe has long maintained that the mesa is a docking station for the Star People. They speak of the doorway, a shimmering point in the rock face that opens like a camera lens. In 2018, researchers caught a glimpse of this impossible reality. High-speed cameras captured a dark, disc-shaped object literally emerging out of the solid cliffside, moving with a velocity that ignored inertia. It's as if the mesa isn't just stone. It's a cloaking device. In 1994, Terry and Gwen Sherman bought the property, hoping for a quiet life. But the ranch greeted them with a warning. When the Shermans moved in, they found heavy iron eye bolts anchored into the corners of every room. The previous owners hadn't just used locks, they had used chains to secure their beds to the floor. Terry Sherman soon understood why. The family would wake up to find their bed sheets perfectly folded on the floor while they were still sleeping on bare mattresses. Or worse, they would find all their groceries, which they had locked in the cabinets, neatly arranged back on the kitchen counter in the middle of the night. It was a psychological game. Something was showing them that locks, walls, and distance meant absolutely nothing. They were living in a house where the furniture moved like chess pieces, and they were the pawns. It started with the smell of sulfur and the feeling of eyes staring from the empty fields. Then, the shadows began to move. Not just in the corners of their vision, but standing at the foot of their beds, watching them sleep. The most famous encounter happened in broad daylight. A wolf, 3 times the size of any natural predator, walked calmly up to the family. It was almost docile until it grabbed a calf by the snout through the bars of a corral. Terry Sherman, a veteran rancher, grabbed his .357 Magnum and fired at point-blank range. The bullet hit. The wolf didn't even flinch. He fired again, 4 more shots, then switched to a high-powered rifle. He blasted a chunk of flesh off the beast, but there was no blood. The creature simply turned and trotted away into the brush, leaving Terry standing with a smoking gun and the realization that the laws of biology no longer applied on his land. The wolf encounter was just the beginning. One evening, Terry saw something even more impossible. A square-shaped craft that projected a beam of light, and inside that beam, he saw a creature that looked like a giant in a diving suit. But the most bizarre detail? The smell. Whenever these entities appeared, the air filled with the stench of ozone and rotting sulfur. Terry once tracked a set of massive, invisible footsteps through the snow. He couldn't see the creature, but he could hear it breathing, a heavy metallic rasp. He watched in horror as the snow compressed under the weight of an invisible giant, leading straight toward his cattle, only to vanish into thin air right before his eyes. Then came the mutilations. Cattle weren't just killed, they were dismantled with surgical precision, organs removed with 0 blood loss, ears and eyes taken by tools that left the surrounding tissue cauterized, technology that didn't exist in a rancher's toolkit. One afternoon, Terry's dogs chased a glowing blue orb into the brush. The family heard 3 distinct yelps, then silence. When Terry found them, all that remained were 3 circles of scorched earth and a pile of liquefied flesh. The dogs hadn't just died, they had been molecularly dissolved. That was the day the Shermans stopped fighting for their ranch and started fighting for their sanity. They realized they weren't the owners. They were the laboratory rats. The Shermans lost 14 head of elite cattle in ways that defy biology. 1 cow was found inside a locked metal trailer, its internal organs removed without a single drop of blood on the floor, and no way for the animal to have been physically taken out or put back in. Driven to the brink of a nervous breakdown, Terry Sherman realized he wasn't a rancher anymore. He was a witness to an occupation. In 1996, the nightmare of the Sherman family caught the attention of the one man who had the resources to investigate it, Robert Bigelow. a billionaire aerospace mogul with deep ties to the CIA and NASA. He didn't just buy the ranch. He turned it into a high-security fortress, surrounded by razor wire and guarded by former military contractors. But Bigelow wasn't alone. Behind him stood the Defense Intelligence Agency. The U.S. government had realized that the anomalies on the ranch weren't just folklore. They were potential weaponized technologies. If an entity could walk through walls or disable a nuclear silo, the Pentagon wanted to know how to do it first. For years, the public was told the government had no interest in UFOs. It was a lie. Under the cover of a program called AAWSAP, the Advanced Aerospace Weapon System Applications Program, the Pentagon funneled $22 million into studying the ranch. This wasn't a search for little green men. It was a study of transmedium effects. They deployed sensors that could detect radiation, magnetic shifts, and gravity spikes. And the results were terrifying. One DIA official reported seeing a yellow-eyed creature staring at him from a tree, while his high-tech sensors recorded a massive surge in microwave energy. The government wasn't just observing the phenomena. They were cataloging a new kind of warfare. Here's a detail the government tried to bury. The scientists on the ranch built a command center filled with monitors, but the property seemed to know they were watching. On multiple occasions, the scientists found their internal, closed-circuit cameras turned inside out, physically twisted by an invisible force. But the biggest insider secret? The shadow men. High-ranking officials reported seeing tall, thin, shadow-like figures walking through the trailers at night. When they tried to chase them, the figures would simply step into a solid wall and vanish. One senior intelligence officer was so traumatized by his visit to the ranch that he refused to ever speak about it again, claiming that something from the ranch had followed him all the way back to Washington, D.C. The Pentagon didn't stop the program because they found nothing. They stopped it because they realized they were no longer the ones in control. But if you look past the official reports, the stories from the insiders are far more disturbing. One high-ranking DIA agent reported standing near the mesa when he felt a sudden, ice-cold chill. He looked up and saw a creature with glowing yellow eyes staring at him from the branches of a tree. In that moment, he didn't hear a sound. He heard a voice inside his head. It said, "We have been here a long time, and we are not leaving." It wasn't just a mental game, it was physical. The scientists installed a state-of-the-art command center with reinforced glass and military-grade encryption. They thought they were safe, but they would arrive in the morning to find the internal cameras physically twisted 180 degrees or even ripped from the walls, all while the motion sensors recorded absolutely nothing. And then there are the shadow men. Multiple scientists reported tall, spindly black figures that would phase through the walls of their locked trailers at night. These weren't ghosts. They were described as solid shadows that absorbed all light around them. One senior intelligence officer was so traumatized by an encounter in his own bedroom on the ranch that he resigned immediately. He told his superiors that the ranch didn't just watch him, it marked him. He claimed that something had followed him all the way back to Washington, D.C., manifesting in his own home, thousands of miles away. The Pentagon didn't shut down the program because of a lack of evidence. They shut it down because their own elite agents were terrified of what they had brought back with them. The most terrifying discovery made by the DIA wasn't what was happening at the ranch. It was what happened after people left. They called it the hitchhiker effect. It's a phenomenon where the anomalies seem to attach themselves to an individual's consciousness, or DNA. High-ranking intelligence officers, battle-hardened men who spent only a few days on the property, returned to their homes in Virginia and Maryland, only to find that the horror had followed them. Their wives reported seeing shadow figures in their hallways. Their children saw blue orbs floating in their bedrooms. The ranch isn't just a location, it's a contagion of reality. Once you observe it, it begins to observe you. This isn't just about seeing ghosts. The hitchhiker effect has devastating biological consequences. Medical records of former ranch investigators reveal a pattern of sudden, aggressive autoimmune diseases, rare cancers, and brain abnormalities that mirror the effects of massive microwave radiation. One whistleblower revealed that his brain MRI showed caudate nucleus damage, the same type of injury seen in victims of the Havana syndrome. It's as if exposure to the ranch's 1.6 gigahertz signal unlocks something in the human immune system, causing the body to attack itself. The Pentagon realized they weren't just dealing with UFOs. They were dealing with a transmissible environmental pathogen that rewritten the victim's health from the inside out. There are documented cases where a husband brought the hitchhiker home from Utah, and within weeks his neighbors, who had never even heard of Skinwalker Ranch, began reporting poltergeist activity and black, eyeless dogs prowling their streets. One scientist reported that his young sons began communicating with an invisible entity in their toy room that knew specific private details about the ranch's classified operations. It's the ultimate security breach. You can lock a file in a vault, but how do you lock away a phenomenon that follows your employees into their children's bedrooms? For decades, we've been looking for UFOs as physical, nuts and bolts, craft from other planets. But Skinwalker Ranch suggests something far more complex. The phenomena here don't just fly, they phase in and out of existence. Eyewitnesses, including high-ranking military observers, have described seeing voids in the sky, sections of the atmosphere that look like pixelated glass or shimmering water. This isn't traditional aviation. This is cloaking technology and space-time manipulation. It's the signature of an intelligence that doesn't travel through space, but folds it. Remember that 1.6 gigahertz signal? Physicists believe it might be the carrier wave for a wormhole. In 2019, a rocket launched over the ranch's Triangle Zone suddenly hit an invisible wall in midair, while sensors recorded a massive spike in microwave energy. It's as if there is a permanent, localized rip in the Earth's magnetic field exactly above the property. This would explain why objects appear to vanish into thin air or emerge directly out of the mesa. We aren't looking at aliens visiting a ranch. We are looking at a permanent doorway between dimensions. A place where the barrier between our world and another is dangerously thin. Here is a detail that was kept out of the mainstream reports for years. During a deep-ground sonar test, researchers found a massive metallic anomaly buried under the ranch that appeared to be hollow. But when they tried to triangulate its position, the coordinates shifted. Every time they got close, the object moved, not through the dirt, but through time. One night, a security guard reported seeing a massive golden disc emerge from a hole that opened in the ground itself. The ground didn't crack. It simply became transparent, like liquid gold, before solidifying again. This implies a technology that can manipulate the molecular density of solid matter. It means that whoever or whatever is operating on Skinwalker Ranch, they don't see our walls, our mountains, or our bodies as solid objects. To them, our entire reality is just software, and they have the source code. After decades of investigation, millions of dollars spent, and countless lives shattered, one truth remains. Skinwalker Ranch is not a local anomaly. It is a window. It has shown us that our understanding of reality is fragile, a thin veil draped over a system we don't control. The Pentagon didn't walk away because they failed to find answers. They walked away because they realized that the phenomenon is sentient. It reacts to being watched. It sabotages the observers. It is a laboratory where we are the subjects, and the walls of the cage are made of frequencies we are only just beginning to measure. There is a dark thread connecting the secret radiation experiments of the 1950s to the black-budget programs of today. Whether it's Project Sunshine harvesting bones or the DIA monitoring brain damage in Utah, the pattern is the same. The government treats the human population as biological sensors. We are the early warning system for a reality that is becoming increasingly hostile. The symptoms seen at the ranch, the neurological insults, the DNA alterations, are no longer confined to 512 acres in Utah. They are appearing in intelligence officers in Havana, in pilots over the Pacific, and in families who have never even heard the name Skinwalker. Here is the final piece of the puzzle that the declassified files won't tell you. The hitchhiker effect isn't just a side effect, it's a deployment. Some insiders believe the ranch is a seeding ground. By exposing high-level officials to these anomalies, the phenomenon travels back to the seats of power, infecting the very systems meant to study it. There are reports of shadow figures now being seen in the hallways of the Pentagon and blue orbs floating in the rooms where classified briefings take place. The ranch didn't stay in Utah. It followed us home. So the next time you feel a sudden, unexplained chill, or hear a voice that shouldn't be there, remember, you don't have to visit Skinwalker Ranch to be part of the experiment. The door has been left open, and something has already walked through. If this story chilled you to the bone, do us a huge favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to join the search for the truth. It's the best way to support an independent creator like me. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and I'll see you in the next one.